listening to The Coolering, a podcast made for manufacturing marketers. Here are Carmen Perry and Jeff White.
Welcome to The Coolering, a podcast for manufacturing marketers, brought to you by Cooler Partners. My name is Jeff White, and joining me today is Carmen Perry. Carmen, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing well. And because we're Canadians, we have to talk about the weather.
No, we're not going to do that. Why would we do that? Everybody expects it. We need to.
I know it's true, but we just had a massive snowstorm.
It's true. Like, and nothing like Canadians to like more than to talk about something that they just a bit of weather that they just had over the weekend.
Yep.
All right. So, listeners, you need to know. I guess we had snow.
Yep.
And that's about the end of it. But what you really need to know is the topic of today's show, which is, I guess, what I like about these types of shows, and they're like, is part of like ongoing world domination of marketers. Really, like this is what we, as marketers, we part of I think what we need to do is spread the understanding of what we do beyond the four walls of the marketing department. And today's guest has been doing just that. Looking forward to today's conversation.
Yeah, I am as well.
Thanks for having me. It's not snowing here. Definitely a little bit of the opposite, but kind of wish it was. Get a little sledding in, but no, glad to join you. Your radio voices make me a little self-conscious about my own voice, but no, I'm glad to give a voice to marketers, but also to I think anybody in manufacturing that just needs to come at it maybe from a different perspective and hopefully share some of that.
Well, Jeff, why don't you introduce our guest? I'm going to chain smoke a few packs of cigarettes and I see if I can get this.
Yeah, no, it's always important to have the better mic when you're the host, I think. So joining us today is Robby Berthume. Robby is the head of marketing for Digitize Designs, and we're glad to have you on the Coolering today, Robby.
Happy to be here. Excited. Let's crack the brain open and hope that doesn't scare anybody.
Well, sir, you've been in the role for what, right around a year now, yes?
Little over a year, yep. Just had 1 year anniversary and got started young at 14, more as an entrepreneur, but have had kind of stints as employee, employer, and kind of pros and cons of both. But yeah, happy I landed at Digitize and excited about what we're doing.
And what are you doing? Tell us a bit about Digitize Designs.
Yeah, so Bo is the founder, CEO. He doesn't like the term CEO, likes head of product. Sounds weird to him, I guess, but he founded the company back in 2016. So a pretty small, nimble team, but we focus on 3D scanning and metrology. And so we sell a range of 3D scanners for professionals. So that might be in manufacturing, aviation, automotive, healthcare, lots of different industries and applications for the technology. But work with ScanTech, work with Faro Technologies, Artec 3D. We sell a slew of 3D scanning, software, metrology related software. Polyworks is a pretty popular application. And then accessories, so scanning spray, targets, reference points, that kind of thing, which we do through e-commerce. And then we have a service side as well, which also is a way of kind of try before you buy a little bit before some companies make the investment into building out their own 3D scanning workflow. So that's what we do. We made the Inc. 5000 last year, so we're high growth the last few years. We're number 1377 as far as on the list, which the list itself, it's just more PR, but we're proud of the growth, and I think really spending the last year and going into this year just kind of resetting and rebuilding everything from our website, revitalizing our brand, just cleaning house and assessing what's working, what isn't.
And I think a lot of people are familiar with 3D printing, certainly more now. The companies in that space have done a pretty good job of normalizing and making that a thing that just about everybody's aware of. But 3D scanning is still a bit different, and something that a lot of people need to learn about. So tell us a bit more kind of about your path into this company and what your background has brought to it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so again, I started my first agency when I was 14, so predominantly digital agency, moved it out to LA, had an office out in Serbia. So built pretty large websites towards the end of it. That's kind of the direction that we went. And then worked at a few agencies in leadership roles, and then had a matchmaking company, a coaching company for agencies. So work with a lot of different brands and environments. But me personally, I had never heard of 3D printing, or I'd never heard of 3D scanning. I had heard of 3D printing, South by Southwest, some of the bigger shows, kind of us agency folks, marketers attends, 3D printing is going to be there along with VR and everything else that's sort of breaking through. 3D scanning, never really thought about it. I knew about, CAD modeling and some of the old school stuff, but I don't think I really realized that you could get a master's in metrology, literally a master's in measurement, that it got that deep. But so yeah, I joined. I connected with Bo. It's been a really good fit. I'm a single father, full custody of 3 kids, so have my hands full. But it's a role that gives me a lot of flexibility, autonomy. I think Bo trusts where my head's at, my vision's at for the company, and is glad to kind of let me take the stage in a way, and so he can focus on what he does best. I like the attention, so it works for me. No, just kidding. But yeah, so settling into my role, it's really been about just assessing where we're at, kind of present state, and what we need to do to get to the next state. And that was a lot of last year, culminating with the launch of our new site and a lot of different initiatives. And this year, I think we're really getting into just measurability is our big theme. We've got the tools, we've got everything we want to do. We know that we can do. It's a matter of Legos, really putting all the pieces together. But I think that's our biggest hole right now is measurement. And in order to do, marketing effectively, you've got to be able to measure. It's no longer just art. It's a lot of science. So I think, it's shifting that.
It would seem to me in the company that you're in, convincing them about the importance of measurement shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah, no, true. Exactly. It is, but it's like with anything. I mean, I think, you think about time tracking, for example. A lot of employees don't like to track time. It's just annoying. There's real work to do, that kind of stuff. And so I think it's just shifting the paradigm to see it as, not just another chore or not a way for, everybody to keep tabs or be micromanaged or that kind of thing. But really, it streamlines everybody's job. It makes us more profitable, which benefits everybody, and it shows us what's working and what isn't. And I think sometimes there might be a fear, subconscious or conscious, of knowing what might not be working and having to kind of take responsibility of that and make a change. So I want to know. I want to know what's working, what isn't, and that takes some implementation work, some time up front. And I think that's been the biggest thing, is just how do you get buy-in with the full team on some of these initiatives, without them coming at it from that same perspective.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of wanted to drill into in today's show, is just kind of understand, what it is that you're doing to kind of make that organization more of a marketing organization. And, this notion of, as you mentioned, like part of the fear of measurement is that fear of learning that something isn't working. And man, like, it strikes me that a lot of manufacturing organizations that are engineer led, that fear of not getting it right seems awfully deep seated, isn't it? So how are you how are you dealing with that and navigating that?
Yeah, that's true. I think that's one of the first things I noticed in my role, is kind of a hesitancy sometimes to, whether it's responding maybe for some people to big name clients, and how to, handle that response or handle a customer support inquiry, whatever it might be. It kind of comes in a lot of shapes, but I've kind of seen this hesitancy there. And a desire, I think, for perfection, because they're all about precision and accuracy and measurement, and so you get to kind of a perfectionist way of thinking and way of wanting to do things. And it's the old saying, what is it? Perfection is the enemy of progress, or perfect is the enemy of progress. And so I'm kind of trying to toe that line, I think, internally, in terms of just getting people on board, letting them know kind of what we're doing, so it's not all happening in a vacuum. On the other hand, I try to push the envelope. I don't always ask for permission. Once or twice, maybe it's it's nipped me in the bud by doing that. But I have to kind of be the one to push the envelope. But I kind of try to bring it back to marketing first and foremost is really the product itself. It starts there, and so whether it's our engineering team, whether it's our support team, sales team, I mean, we all have a role in, every touch point that really plays out from a marketing perspective, whether that's interactions, whether that's a view to our website, a visit to our socials, or whether it's, simply when we're working on our RM300, our new OEM solution. So, as we build out our own products, as we start thinking in a different way, how are we doing that? And, before I came here, I think it was from a technical perspective. So, for example, the RM300, the way that it's named is based on 300 being microns in accuracy, and it has like meaning to it. I'm coming at it thinking RM300. Yeah, where did this come from? Like let's really and let's think of, okay, the full product line. Let's think beyond this particular build, and really do that now while it's strategic. So I think that's really a big part of it. And then getting people excited. I'm the biggest like cheerleader as far as if we're going to share social content, put stuff out there, and some of it's, employees as well. If we have our after Christmas party, pictures from that event, get them involved, tag them, get them excited about what's happening. Let them feel we had an Inc. 5000 celebration party as a team. Let them feel kind of the results of things like press mentions or a win there. Let them celebrate some of those things, because then they start to see, okay, there is some tangible value. And if I get pushed too much where it's like, yeah, but it's all about revenue, yeah, but we can't measure that. So that's when it all comes back to that measurement piece. You can do all these crazy, beautiful, shiny, sexy things, but if you're not measuring it, then it's going to be hard to sell to anybody internally for so long.
Robert, I don't want to get too far past a comment that you made that kind of has my head spinning a little bit. This notion of the RM300, and you see like that example, you see that so much in really kind of high tech, highly engineered categories where very smart people are making these products for other very smart people to buy. And one of the kind of debates that I have found entertaining over the years in that kind of category is, on the one hand, you're often in some ways inventing a net new category or trying to grow awareness of the category overall, so that drives you to want to speak about it in a way that is very accessible to people. And that can often get you a bunch of consumer level interest, which can do things like blow your paid search budget out of the water and get you no leads in return. And that is kind of in competition with the RM300s of the world, that kind of way of thinking that says, let's talk in very technical ways about a very technical thing, so that only people with a serious buying intent are ever going to show up or find it in the first place. Do you find that to be a hard kind of tightrope to walk?
Yeah, and I think also it's kind of the copycat syndrome. I mean, I see that in terms of even the 3D scanning and metrology world. I mean, it's 5-10% annual growth as far as market size. I'm talking about $1 billion industry, but even amongst a lot of the larger manufacturers of 3D scanners or software, anything kind of related relevant to 3D scanning and metrology, there's a lot of similarities in terms of their websites, in terms of their content, their videos, and I think there's a lot of cross-referencing happening constantly and saying like, hey, they're doing it good. Oh, we need to step into that level. But it's interesting because I've never really, like, since I started when I was 14, and I don't know how I looking back and having kids now, I don't know what I was thinking or how I pulled it off, honestly, because most 14-year-olds aren't thinking that way. But I remember, in terms of competition, I always felt like there was a risk at paying too much attention to the competition. And so measurement comes back. It's important to see what they're doing, to see whether it's, social media, volume of posts, frequency, what's getting engagement, so on and so forth. You can search trends in terms of their AdWords buy. But I think if you pay too much attention to competitors, you begin to, again, whether you realize it or not, kind of emulate them and kind of play it safe. And I think, a lot of marketers that play it safe, a lot of companies that play it safe, have safe businesses, have safe growth. I mean, that comes with, maybe that's attractive. I think that's one of the challenges as well, is risk is one of the biggest B2B purchase decision-making factors, right? So something like our RM300, that could be perceived by a professional with metrology experience, that's coming in and maybe a direct target audience, for us. it could be perceived, well, because it's technical, but also it could be perceived the other way. I think there's always going to be different perceptions, and you can't fully control, in terms of that narrative anymore with the internet and with just the combination of everything out there. I think it's more about just consistency and congruency, and finding the balance of providing the information, technically speaking, that people need and want to make an informed decision, but also doing it in a way that's easy to jump into and then dig a little deeper as you go, and try to do that with a new website. I mean, I started off last February, literally, I think it was February 9th was my start date. And, I didn't know anything, again, about metrology or 3D scanning. So the learning curve in terms of our full product line and what we're doing and just everything that's involved was pretty tremendous. But here a year later, we've got a 35-page, 3D scanning guide, ebook for free on our site, 50 sets of frequently asked questions across all the different products and services and areas. And I think that's where, we're trying to add value. We're rolling out a new knowledge base. So basically it's, hey, we're here, we can provide that level of expertise. We've got live chat. We can provide support, whatever it might be. On the other hand, here's, layered in ways that are easy to digest and across our different channels, resources where you can actually dig deeper and make a better, more informed decision. Because, let's face it, when you're talking about $20, $30, $40,000 on the scanner, it's the price of the car. And the RM300, to me, that's like a low six-figure build. RM300 sounds like the name of a car, like the F-150, when I think about it more as like the Cybertruck or Tesla. Like, let's get into something that has a little more, functional, useful value in it, or at least just doesn't sound like blah, like that's kind of how it sounds to me. But I'm very opinionated, as you can tell. So, and rarely take breaths. You have to literally interrupt me if I go on these rants, if you haven't noticed.
It's fine. It's fine. You can feel the excitement and the interest in the product category for sure. I do think it's interesting though, because you're coming into this company that is obviously very technical. They're probably not as marketing forward or have a similar personality to you. How are you finding, helping that team overcome, not, timidity is maybe not the right phrase, but maybe they're not quite as aggressive as you at going out and identifying those opportunities. How are you bringing them on board and kind of helping them, see the results and get excited about it the same way you are?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think, ultimately, in my role, I mean, in terms of like the engineering team or sales team or whoever it may be, they don't necessarily report to me in that sense. But I think anybody has an opportunity to be a leader. And I think, being a leader is really not about words. It's like when I look at my kids, who are 7, 10, and turning 12 in a few weeks, they're not going to remember so much my words, and I give them plenty of words. They'll tell you plenty of the same words and advice. They're not, paying attention or listening to my example in that way. They're looking at my actions. They're looking at my decisions. They're looking at the results of those actions and decisions. They're feeding off of my energy. If I'm stressed from work or whatever it might be, I don't get stressed from work if my boss watches this. No, but if they can feel that energy. If I come home, there's a transfer there. And so, I think it's very much the same when it comes to working with the team. They can feel if I have a positive energy, they can feel confidence. If they're a little underconfident in areas, I can make up for that a little bit just by being like, no, we're doing this. Like we're making this happen. And then I think it's proof, and so them seeing the output, them seeing, something like our new website took about 6-7 months to work through and create, in terms of, everything from the design all the way to the development, copy, and every aspect of it. And it's hard, I think, for some to realize like what an undertaking that can be to do it right and continually then improve from there. But when it's launched, when the team starts to see it, see our brand come alive and some of our new apparel, we just went through and even, did more t-shirts and long sleeve shirts and dress shirts for our sales guys and new business cards and dot cards. And so some of those, I think, more tangible areas really help just kind of bring light to, okay, this is what marketing is. And I think there's a danger to that, because then you start to confuse marketing with communications, and it is different. Communications is one aspect of marketing, but marketing, at its core, it is a science degree if you're going to become educated in it, because it's about revenue, it's about growth, it's about moving the dial. It's not just about making noise. And so I think sharing performance analytics, that's also very helpful. So if I'm measuring everything across social, across our e-commerce sales, and then working hard with the team, they're seeing some of these stats, but know that, hey, if we started to measure these other areas, we could actually know what our cost per customer acquisition is for this product segment, for whatever it might be, like start to be able to do even more interesting analysis. But even in terms of the reports I'm sharing now, as far as site traffic, engagement, growth, e-commerce growth, so on and so forth, it's exciting. It's motivating. You can see the numbers. You can see that things are working. And I think that that's helpful just to bring that sense of confidence. But I don't know. I also think that I'm a bit of an anomaly. I think that I'm the guy that's coming into the office, probably not adhering to dress code, wearing flip-flops in a manufacturing facility, doesn't take off his hat. I think my annual review, Bo, it was a good annual review, but Bo told me I'm pretty high maintenance in terms of, as an employee, this is no news to me. But I think that that's needed. I think sometimes, luckily in terms of Bo and Kyle and Patrick and our leadership team, I get along really well with mellow people and conservative people and good stewards. And so there's just a good balance because they bring that, but I'm also going to push them. I'm going to push them hard to come against some of those comfort zones and some of that fear, and not just push to, jump over the cliff and hope that we're going to land, but I've jumped over some of these cliffs before. So I can bring that confidence that, hey, we will survive, and we will learn from this and we will get to the next level. So I'm very different, but I think, it's also helpful. I work with web developers for a very long time. And so it's that logical, my dad also has Asperger's. So that same kind of logic oriented mindset I'm very familiar with. But that doesn't stop me from trying to be, as a friend of mine calls me, a peacock, just shiny, glittery, but I think that it's that energy that I want, our team to feel. And I want people interacting with me to feel. I'm excited. I'm not here to, sell 3D scanners and move it. It's too boring for me.
Developers and engineers, very similar breed.
Indeed, and we have both. We have our head of engineering, over here developing Python and working on the development side. But that's also too where we can geek out. We can connect. I can connect on a personal level to different members of our team in different ways. It may not always be about marketing, but Patrick and I will be talking about AI and ChatGPT and more of the technical side. So I think connecting with them on that level, and it takes some time. It's taken a year to develop those relationships and trust. Bo's had a lot of trust in me from the beginning. But I think, for the full team to really even understand kind of what it is I do, it's taken some time. And I think that's normal and just got to be patient.
Should see if Crocs would make you some, approved steel-toed flip-flops or something.
Probably. My daughter, I just bought some Crocs 2 days ago. My youngest daughter is obsessed with Crocs. Oh, man. I'm working on it. No, any kind of stuff like that. But I mean, that's what's exciting, though, is I think, we can all feel, and looking at the future of the industry is bright, that there are always going to be tailwinds. There's always going to be things that happen. I think we're really good stewards in terms of being well prepared for the future and making, smart strategic decisions. And I think that ability to forward plan all comes back to metrics. And so, really, I've been happy in terms of, Bo leading by example by bringing on help in terms of consulting implementation with our CRM, with, the email campaign sequences we build out and the measurability there. Having that accountability with, bringing on a vendor, I think is also very important. There's some battles that me as, head of marketing, I should fight. And there's sometimes where it's really nice to bring in a third party and provide that additional kind of professional opinion. We would do that sometimes with our studio and other areas as well.
I want to kind of hook on a word that said just a couple of sentences ago, actually, and you mentioned patience, and had me wondering, because you talk about this high growth environment, and high growth environments aren't typically what you associate with patience. You associate with them with, fail fast. You'll hear these types of conversations. I guess, how have you navigated that balance between a kind of aggressiveness to fuel the growth and patience to understand that you can't launch a proper website in 6 weeks, guys?
Yeah, I think that, so when I started last February, there was definitely an understanding that, look, it's going to take really through the end of this year to to get our house in order and to do sort of a rebuild. Not that it was horrible before, but in terms of our site, in terms of our brand, and not just how we visually express our brand, but verbally express it as well. The essence of what we are, our audience, really define that. It's going to take time to really make that happen. And so I think what happened was, we had a period 3 years. Go ahead.
So you negotiated that runway a bit in advance?
I did. And I just said that before, essentially my fear was the previous website. We have an archived example, but, I'm very hesitant to throw a lot of money driving traffic to that site. And it just was not built in terms of calls to actions and engagement. And on the e-commerce side, so much needed to improve. So I said, look, it's better to really, revitalize the brand, remap all of that, fix all of our touch points, get our social machine going, build out our in-house studio. So we have a content, machine, but also internally with SOPs for our team to follow and be able to create more videos, tutorials, that kind of thing. And rebuild the website. Inc. 5000, that was right, February. I was like, hey, let's submit for that. I see our growth. This is probably going to be a year of investment. And so that's really how, Bo and I and the rest of our leadership team, we looked at last year was investment into the company, kind of taking a step back, focusing on building out, actual real marketing, I think, but also in other areas, whether it's, again, finances or CRM, just getting help in these key bottleneck zones so that we're better prepared to continue to grow in the future. So I think, last year growth was really year over year about the same, maybe a little bit more than the previous, where it was 420% the 3 years prior. And that was, I think, intentional in the sense that we did take a step back and said, hey, if we continue at this pace, it's going to be chaos. It is going to be chaos. And so we took on overhead, we hired more people, we've, take the time to build out those processes, but I feel really, really confident about this year and years to come because we have taken those steps. And Bo has not put, any kind of pressure on me as far as, like the website launch, it taking as long as it did. I never felt a sense of, come on, push it, push it. There was always an understanding that, no, this is key. This is vital to our long-term success. It's worth it to do it right. So I'm grateful for that. I've been on the agency side, haven't always been the recipient of that kind of patience, but I think, that ultimately does empower somebody like me, and it's going to keep somebody like me around and excited and doing their best when they feel that sense of empowerment. So I think, other companies should always look for the same, when it comes to, oh, we're making our first marketing hire, because they're getting into an area that maybe they don't know a ton about. And so it's hard to manage somebody when you don't really know a lot about the role and what should be expected and personality type and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. I could go on forever, but you have to just edit all this into too many pieces.
I think that's good advice for a lot of marketers in terms of, I think you're in a good position and quite a fortuitous position there to have an understanding executive that gets that this stuff, especially when you're coming from a place where it didn't really exist before, like a 35-page ebook about your core offering doesn't just happen overnight.
Yeah.
The design of a conversion focused website certainly doesn't happen overnight. Now you're in a better place to provide these assets to sales and for other people to understand kind of what you do. And then the apparel kind of supports that internally and shows people that there's connectivity between all these different pieces. But if you were offering some advice to other marketers for how to kind of communicate the importance of having patience around the production of these really important and long-term assets like a web property, what would you say?
Yeah, I'd say I'd put it in real terms first. So, I think if you're, being hired or you're hired to come in for whatever, if it's on the marketing side, whatever it might be, director of marketing or whatever, if you're coming in, I think you should be pretty vocal, pretty real, pretty honest, forthright. And so, I've always spoken with probably too much candor. I'm an overshare. And Bo knows this all too well. The good side is that, there hasn't been a lot of surprises when it comes to sort of how I think and how I'm envisioning, kind of attacking a different, problem. We're very much on the same page without needing to, check in constantly or just constantly keep him apprised of what's happening. He'll see it. We'll have the right conversations. I think being able, part of that is just the grace of God, being able to land in a relationship like this, because I needed those buy-in to really have the time to build it out to the point where the full team could buy in. So that was really important, and to be able to have that trust and sense of responsibility there. But I also think, coming in and I knew with clients from an agency perspective, like managing expectations was what it was all about. So I'm thinking more like a project manager and putting that hat on. I can get them excited and make all these promises, and we need to work on all these areas. I mean, there were so many opportunities, particularly when I just joined, where it's like, I don't know, pick a number, any number. There's so many things that need to happen, right? So I think prioritizing that and just really, again, just focusing on, look, I mean, if we're doing all of these efforts over here that cost money, that cost time and resources, but we're directing it to a brand, a website, a storefront, our place really in the new market, the new economy is our website, right? Then we're taking a huge gamble here, wasting a lot of money here. It just doesn't make sense to go on this way. So let's do the status quo thing while we're rebuilding over here, but let's get this done. Let's put in the time and make it happen. And I think that part of the reason too why there's trust in, okay, that's the right decision, is because I've been doing websites really my whole life, and so there is a track record there of, okay, this guy probably knows that this is a smart move. But really, I think it's easy enough just showing the stats. That's why I like metrics. So again, it's like, here's our analytics, here's our engagement, here's our time on site, here's industry benchmarks, here's our competitors. And we have these free tools nowadays where, you can run a few reports in an hour and make a compelling case for a lot of things, but particularly when it comes to something like the website. And I think it's been hard because there, again, is that anchor desire for perfection when it comes to the team that I'm working with. And so, we're doing a big video production here in a few weeks we're excited about. And that's going to be just the caliber production that is going to appeal to everybody. We also have our in-house studio where we're going to be churning out more and more product tutorials and things like that. And I know that I'll get into something like Reels or YouTube Shorts, or maybe like a little 10-second clips that aren't long videos. Maybe they're just more of the shiny stuff to mix things up. And I think they probably look at that differently than I do. I look at it as just shaking up our content. We have all different types and so forth. They're always sort of looking more at the substance piece of it, which is important. We need substance. That's why, I put together the ebook. I'm a big proponent of substance, but you don't want to sacrifice personality for substance. And there's a very, very fine line in terms of, being like in our position as Digitize Designs, equipping, empowering, providing our customers, our prospects with everything they need to make the perfect decision whether it's us, whether it's not us, but to make that decision and go all the way through to conversion. I think that we have a responsibility to serve them in a way that meets them where they're at, provides that information, but again, doesn't become so technical that that just turns into scary. That just turns into boring. And at the end of the day, we're all people. We're not professionals. We're professionals and we're people. So that's the other thing that, with Digitize, I really want to infuse more and more of is our people, our personalities. Our prior site didn't even have an About Us page or our leadership team featured or anything like that. And I think that's important. It's not just the machinery. It's the man. It's the women. It's the behind the machinery, and it's the story. People love stories.
Speaking of stories, I look forward to watching this story continue to unfold over the coming year. I think it's going to be interesting to watch Digitize Designs in 2024. Thanks so much, Robby, for sharing your experience with us. It's been great to have you on the show.
My pleasure. It's been an honor. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to The Cooler Ring with Carmen Perry and Jeff White. Don't miss a single manufacturing marketing insight. Subscribe now at KulaPartners.com/The Cooler Ring. That's KULAPartners.com/The Cooler Ring.